Hi everybody, Mr. Starry again. Today I want to talk about solving one-step equations that involve multiplying and dividing. Again, our goal remains the same. We're looking for the value of this variable that will make this equation true or work. And again, how are we going to do that? By using good solving form so that when these solving equations get a little more difficult, we have something to fall back on. Now, let's take a look at our first example here. Again, the goal being we need to do the opposite operation of what we see. Well, I don't see an operation here. It looks like just a -3 smack up against an x. Well, remember that whenever you see this number, this coefficient, smack up against a variable, that means multiply. So we can actually read this as -3 times x. So the operation that I'm seeing is multiply. So we have to undo that. Well, let's split our equation. If I see multiply, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So what I can do is divide by. I'm going to use the fraction bar notation to show division. I'm going to divide by -3 on both sides. Remember, solving equations, whatever you do to one side has to happen to the other. So what happens here is, these don't like zero out. They actually go to the number 1, right? And that's okay because if you remember, any variable can be written with a 1 in front of it. So if I get my coefficient to be 1, then that's really what I'm after here, because 1x and x are the same thing. So what happens here, and you can use this kind of cross out technique, right? We're just showing that we undid it and it's no longer there. What I'm left with is just my x. My equal sign rides my line down. And now I just need to do some quick math here. 12 divided by -3, which is -4. Looking at our second example, let's draw our equation split line. What operation do you see happening to the variable? Well, I see a fraction bar, so that means divide. So I see a divide by 6. How do I undo that? Well, the opposite of division is multiply. By what number am I multiplying? The 6. So, and again, it's kind of weird to look at, but what we need to understand is that this isn't 6 times 6, right? This is divide by 6, multiply by 6. Those are opposites of each other, and what they do is they just wipe each other out, right? So they kind of just cancel. And all I'm left with on my left side is my x. My equal sign rides my line. -3 times 6 should give me -18. Taking a look at our third example, again, a similar kind of thing. We divide our equation into 2, into my sides. What do I see happening to my variable? Well, I see x divided by -5. Okay, well, how do I undo a divide by -5? I multiply by -5 on both sides. Again, these cancel. I'm left with x equals 4 times -5, which is -20. Kind of a tricky one for number 4, because we see a fraction bar, but it turns out this actually isn't division, right? It turns out 3/4 is actually being multiplied by this x, right? This is 3/4 times x. Remember, it's kind of like this first example where we see a number, right? A fraction is just a number, smack up against the variable. So I need to be thinking multiply here. 3/4 multiplied by x. All right, well, let's keep that in mind. We're going to undo this with division, right? I see multiply, so what do? I do division. By what number? And it turns out this one's kind of weird. We're going to divide by a fraction. That's okay. It's just a number, and maybe you have a calculator handy that can handle this sort of thing. Again, these will cancel. I'm left with x equals. We need to do -24 divided by 3/4. Well, what does that turn out to be? It actually turns out to be -32. Moving on, things are kind of flipped around, but again, it's okay. We focus on the side that has the variable. All right, so let's focus here. What do we see? We see x divided by -2. I see division, so what do? I do multiply. What number is kind of preventing me from having x alone? -2. Again, your divide by -2 and multiply by -2 will cancel out. I'll be left with x, equal sign comes down, and now I just need to do some quick math here. -12 times -2, which is +24. Last but not least, probably maybe the trickiest one here, I don't know, we'll see. Notice I just have -x equals 4, so there's two ways we can think about this, right? If -x equals +4, what do you think +x would equal? Well, +x would have to equal -4, but here's how it works, right? Kind of back to this idea, if we don't see a number or a value in front of that x, we can always put one there. Watch where I squeeze it there. I squeeze it in between my negative and my variable. Now I can see, hey, this x actually has a multiplier or a coefficient of -1. Well, now we're ready to solve. We kind of put some pieces in place to let us do that. I see -1 times x. So what do? I see multiply. So what do? I divide. I'll divide both sides by -1. Multiply by -1 and divide by -1 will cancel out. I'm left with x, equal sign, rides down. 4 divided by -1 is -4. So actually two ways we could have thought about that last one. This is how we solve equations that involve, or one-step equations that involve multiply and divide. And that's kind of just a quick overview of many different examples that you'll see kind of as they pertain to this. But that's all I have for you today in this one, guys. We'll talk to you in the next one.